Cannes Confidential just completed its 6-episode first season on Acorn TV. The international series stars French leads Lucie Lucas, Tamara Marthe, or Shime, and British actor Jamie Bamber. The action, romance, crime drama was delayed by COVID, shot last year, has the approval of the mayor of Cannes, and was directed by the dude who directed Paul Walker's last movie. On this podcast, we like to discuss the most recent installments of a different series every show. The last 2 episodes of Cannes Confidential drop Monday, July 10th. If you're here to hear about them, you're in the right place. Welcome to today's episode. Everyone knows about Cannes, a resort town in the French Riviera, for its famed International Film Festival, which actually has its origins stemming back to World War II. But we're not going to get into that. It's basically if the Oscars are too mainstream for you, too cliche, too Hollywood for you, well, that's what Sundance and Cannes are for, all those indie film festivals, right? You even attended one in Phoenix, right, last year?
Yeah, Phoenix Film Festival.
Mm-hmm. And so do you know what the highest prize for the best film at Cannes is?
Is it money?
It's the prestigious Palme d'Or Award.
Yeah, no, that's right, of course.
The Golden Palm, as it were. It's a trophy that's 118 grams of fair mined, certified 18-karat gold, handcrafted by artisans, costs over $30,000 to make, and it's just a little tree branch. If you've ever seen it, it's just a tiny little tree branch.
That's very funny because whenever you see a trailer that says Palme d'Or winner, they always make sure to make it a big deal. It's in the center of the screen, and it's always a big emblem almost.
Yeah, and whenever you watch the Olympics or you watch the Super Bowl, they always have a segment that talks about the creation of the trophies that they use. In fact, I have a game for us. It's over the last few years, the movies that have come out that have won the award. I want to see if you can tell, just based off the plot, which one is not a real movie.
Okay. Okay.
I got 4 of them here, and 3 of them are true, and 1 of them is not.
And you're not going to say the names of them. It's just going to be the plot, right?
I do have the names of them in the year that they came out, but I'll decide whether or not to actually add them at the end of each description. Okay, so the first one is this. A man notices his family is beginning to transform into inanimate objects, but no one is willing to address it, sending him into a mental breakdown.
Okay,
and that was a French film called, I'll tell you, The Paper Basket. It came out in 2022. Okay?
All right.
The next one is a woman serial killer who disguises herself as a boy, has sex with cars, and then gives birth to a truck.
No, that sounds 100% true.
Okay, it was called Titan, and it came out in 2021.
Yes, no, I remember hearing about that.
Oh, you remember hearing about that. The next one is a poor family infiltrates a rich person's household only to find out another poor family is already living in the basement.
That's just Parasite, right?
It is Parasite from 2019. Yeah. Did it win Cannes, though? That's the question. A woman who is accused of murdering her husband after he dies in a mysterious manner. The only witness is her blind son.
The only witness is her blind son?
Yes. It's called Anatomy of Fall, and it came out in 2023.
Since all of the other ones are kind of dark, the last 3 are dark, and it seems like those would maybe be the winners, I will go with the first one.
The first one is about a guy who goes into a mental breakdown because his family is turning into inanimate objects.
Yes, I'm going to say that's a...
Paper Basket?
Yeah.
That's absolutely fake. You got it. Let's do a little transition over to this show, which is called Cannes Confidential. Yes. Have you heard of someone named Robert L. Johnson?
No.
Okay, so really? Okay.
Yeah, no,
He's the first African-American billionaire. He is one of 10 kids. He also founded the BET network in the 1980s, sold it to Viacom in 2001, made a killing. That was the first cable television network aimed at African Americans. And he's got some weird political views. But aside from that, he also has this thing called RLJ Entertainment. And RLJ Entertainment is important because it is owned by the subsidiary of AMC Network, right? Mm-hmm. And AMC and RLJ, in conjunction, have bought out Acorn. So that's how we get Acorn, and that is what this series was presented on, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So this is about Lieutenant Camille Delamarre and policewoman Leah Robert as they receive help with certain investigations from an enigmatic British gentleman burglar, Harry or Henry?
Harry.
Okay, with a mysterious past.
Right, because we see a flashback of it, and also he didn't seem like he was a cop whenever they were investigating the crime.
Yeah, I think anybody who's watched the first 4 episodes would know that. But episode 5 and 6 are called Southern Gothic and Love and Let Die. And this project was shot in English, dubbed in French by the same actors, And yeah, tell me what you thought of it.
It's not Age of the Living Dead, and it's not Velma, but is it close? This show was terrible.
Okay.
Whether it's Camille or Leia, their accents are so heavy and they're like the main characters. It's indecipherable what they're saying like half the time. Thank God I had subtitles so I understood what was going on.
So Lucie Lucas and Tamara Marthe, or Scheim. Scheim is actually a famous singer in France, and Lucie Lucas is a very famous actress who's been on a show called Clem for like 13 seasons. However, I don't think that their English is particularly like they even said they're not bilingual.
Yeah. So watching this episode, you could tell that like even when they were saying the dialogue, first off, the acting is not good. The only actor that I thought was actually good in this, it was probably my favorite character, and they chock him full of one-liners, is Harry.
Yeah, I mean, he's been in Battlestar Galactica. He was in Counterpart. He's been in a lot of English-speaking shows. He's English originally, but he also speaks French. So
aside from him, it seemed like every single character had a hard time just being able to say the English correctly.
Mm-hmm.
And the only other pro I can give for this show is that some of the shots are nice. In episode 5, there's like a big mansion, and it looked like the set design was pretty good for it.
So just tell me right now, what are you going to give it?
I'm like a 3 out of 10.
So these last 2 episodes both have a 3 out of 10.
Yes. I mean, like, the thing is that it started off with, in episode 5, a seance happening. So I thought that these were going to be the main characters that we were following throughout the rest of the episode, but it isn't. It's dealing with this family. I guess that their mother was a famous pianist who ended up dying, and they wanted to see if they could talk to her because they thought that she might be like kind of being evil from the grave beyond, kind of haunting the family. And then it cuts to Pascal, who is one of the mom's sons, running through the forest. And then he ends up like, we don't see who's chasing him, but he ends up dying. And then we cut to the intro. And I was just like kind of...
So it's just something that they're presenting as the beginning twist.
I was left in such a state of confusion. But then right afterwards, we cut to Harry. He is having a dream, and it led to one of the most unintentionally funny scenes, I think, of 2023. Because he's having this dream, I guess it actually happened to him, maybe it happened in the pilot, where these people come out of the woods as he's playing with his daughter and his wife.
His daughter was played by his actual daughter in real life.
Okay, I mean, it doesn't really matter that much. They end up taking him away, and then suddenly they shoot the wife out of nowhere, and then he wakes up from that like it was such an awful dream. And the way it was shot, it wasn't even edited.
It reminds me of The Punisher almost, because it sounds like he had to watch his family die violently.
It was not nearly as dark, though. The thing is that whenever you were seeing the dream, it had this huge blue sepia overtone to it. And it wasn't one of those fluid scenes, though. It wasn't one of the scenes where it just kind of plays out. It did that weird kind of trippy thing where it's like, it seems like frames are on it for too long.
Yeah, I think this really character is such a mysterious past guy, an enigmatic guy that they really wanted to just provide some backstory. If you think about Westworld, they did the same thing with Arnold, where he was constantly thinking about his own son. Or you think about in Stranger Things, where you had the backstory to the sheriff there.
But
it's always about a lost relative.
He didn't even have that much of a backstory, and he's not that type of character. This is supposed to be the comic relief of the whole entire show, and they tried to start it off as if this thing was tragic, which was just shot so awfully anyways. When it comes to anything, whether it be the editing or the story, which can't even keep like a one-track mind or genre that it's trying to go with. At the beginning, it seemed like it was going with camp horror when it was doing that seance scene. Yeah. And then it suddenly went into this mystery where they need to figure out what exactly is going on. So they start interviewing the family when they realize that Pascal, someone tried to set up like it was a suicide, but they actually ended up killing him and went the mystery route. Then it went a weird Jason Bourne route where it completely...
There's a lot of action. So remember what I said in the intro about how Paul Walker's last movie, the same director...
Brick Mansion,
They got that guy. He's also worked on the Transporter, Lockout, Taken franchises as an editor and director. They specifically pulled him for that purpose.
But the action in the show, it doesn't even make sense. They ditched the storyline. They ditched the mystery storyline that they were focusing on for the first 30 minutes to do this weird other storyline that came out of nowhere. Apparently, Camille's father is in jail for a crime that he did not commit. I guess
she's trying to prove him innocent.
Wrong time. Trying to prove him innocent, but what they were trying to do, it didn't even seem like they had a valid reason for. Apparently, Camille and Harry, they need to act like there is a witness to the crime. I don't know why it was never really
the corruption,
because
I think her dad was arrested for some form of corruption in the police force.
So they go to Leia and they're like, we need you to act like you were a witness to this crime scene for whatever reason. They tried to give a reason, it didn't really make sense, and it didn't really matter in the end, because all that happens is that Camille, Harry, and Leia, they go to this park. And then the main, I guess, antagonist of the whole series, Boar, shows up out of nowhere, shoots Leia twice. Camille acts as if somehow that is a big deal when it's so obvious.
What do you mean that's a big deal?
She's wearing a bulletproof vest. And you would think that Leia would at least tell Camille that as all this is going on. But Camille acts like Leia is dead. But no, of course, Boar ends up taking off to a different car. And then they, like, open up Leia's shirt. And yeah, she's wearing a bulletproof vest. She's completely fine. The storyline did absolutely nothing, because then it goes back to the mystery with very little talk about what scene just happened.
I think you have to, like, because none of what you're saying doesn't, like, sounds terrible. It just sounds like something you'd see more in, like, a NCIS or something.
When you are dealing with characters that have been done 1,000 times better in any other, like, USA show, even
you just watched Deadlock, right?
Yes.
That's a detective show just like this one. It incorporates multiple genres. It's also got two female leads there, right?
No. That didn't have bad acting to it. That didn't have editing that was just ridiculous and that didn't work at all, and didn't have a storyline that was too jumbled.
Well, how about Majorca Files then? Because that had a similar thing.
Majorca Files is one of the things I have it connected to, but I like Majorca Files because I felt like it knew exactly what it was trying to be. This show had no idea. It jumbled so many different genres, and again, ditches its main premise for a weird side storyline that doesn't even come back to play later on.
Do you want to know what its inspirations were?
Sure.
Okay, there's this 1970s action comedy called The Persuaders, which I didn't look up too much. There's La La Land, and also...
How is La La Land even remotely compared to this?
I was hoping you could tell me. And then the last one was Alfred Hitchcock's To Catch a Thief, which was actually filmed in Cannes. Part of the reason that, like, it's called Cannes Confidential is because they got the rights to do so. They filmed exclusively there. They got the mayor's approval, David Lisnard, who apparently is a big deal in Cannes. And the funny thing about that is he said that the reason he wanted to approve this show was not so that you could see the touristy locations, but stuff like that you wouldn't normally see. The 70,000 people who actually live there full time, who would, like, have the normal towns. So it wouldn't be like the best of Europe, the fancy parts of Europe.
I mean, I think that's only what they showed in this thing. They only showed the attractions.
Gritty look at what Cannes could be.
Gritty. Do you want to know who the main person is that killed Pascal? Because usually when you do a mystery, you at least go to a couple different people and they investigate, and then they figure out by the end by usually some shocking twist who it ends up being. They only investigate one person this episode, in the 5th episode, and that's who it is. Okay. And the only thing that they have to stop them from arresting them for a majority of the episode is an alibi that ends up falling apart later on in the episode. They try to use NFTs as the reason as to why George, who was Pascal's brother, ended up killing Pascal. NFTs. That is something that was used in 2020 and 2021. Their time has passed.
Shot during COVID. And so it's probably written during that time.
But you have Ramsey, he's the tech, and he's trying to explain what an NFT is. Everyone knows what an NFT is.
Yes, but when he wrote it, NFTs were exploding in value, so it seemed like...
Yes, and that's the reason that George ended up killing Pascal, because apparently Pascal had a ton of money from NFTs.
Yes.
Wanted to release a tell-all article on his mom, who apparently was mentally unstable right before they died. And then they end up searching the house. There's I did think this was cool. There was an underground layer, kind of like Parasite and Barbarian. It was a hidden room. I thought that was interesting, but when they went underneath the basement, they ended up finding a laptop. Camille and Leia, they are the people that are searching the house.
So does Camille and Leia, do they have a relationship?
Okay, let me get to... I promise I'll get to that. It will be in the night. It's right afterwards.
You're yelling so much that I just want to make sure.
What happened was... Leia ends up taking the computer. She goes upstairs. Yeah. And then Camille is just kind of downstairs. And then George ends up, I guess, coming out of thin air because there was nowhere for him to be hiding in this room. But somehow he's down there. And then he gets knocked out by Harry, who for some reason is there as well. They tried to give him a reason. He was there to look at a necklace or something.
I assumed he would always be there with the other two.
You would think so.
Yes.
Yeah, but it seems like when they were touring the house and trying to find this hidden room, he was there for no reason at all other than just...
I'm saying I thought that he'd always be accompanying Leia and Camille. Like, there's no reason why he wouldn't have been there.
I know, but
you're acting like it's a surprise that he was there.
He was. They were surprised to see him there. He walks into a room and they're like, "Oh, you're here," for no reason. And so after they end up arresting George, Camille and Leia, they have a kiss this episode. And it's not just like a peck on the cheek. It's like a full-on makeout session.
Yeah.
But there was no sign of it throughout this episode. This is
supposed to be a love triangle between Harry and Camille and Leia and Camille. And Leia isn't supposed to like Harry at all. From what I understood.
Yeah, well, that's true.
Is there a lot of like sarcastic like responses and
all the time? Okay. It's one of those shows that has one-liners.
But she like adamantly dislikes.
I want to talk about this Camille and Leia kiss. It came out of nowhere. There was nothing that was hinting at the entire episode. It seemed like there wasn't even a passionate moment shared between the two. And it seemed like in the next episode it didn't even matter because Camille and Harry end up having a non-date, but it really is a date, on a boat. And Leia ends up making out with one of the people that she's interviewing over a murder in the 6th episode.
How does that work? How does she go from interviewing someone or interrogating someone to making out?
In the 6th episode,
they do things weird in France.
There's an actress, and her actress's assistant ends up dying by perfume. That's how they end up. She dies by perfume, and the person that died by perfume had a girlfriend. Apparently, a girlfriend that Leia knew. It seemed like Leia knew all three people: the actress, the assistant, and the girlfriend. And apparently, Leia and the girlfriend used to have like an old flame go on. And then, yeah, they end up making out when she's interviewing her about any possible person who might want to have killed killed her. I mean, like, I know that you said that you had people that worked on this show, but do you know who the writers are? Because these writers...
The writer is the same person who created the show, whose name is Chris Murray. He's written for, like, Midsummer Murders or whatever that thing is, the British show, yeah.
The characters in this are just, they are so stereotypical. How they find Pascal's body in the 5th episode, by the way, is that there are 2 people live streaming. They must be in their 30s, the actual actors, but they're acting like they're supposed to be 20. The amount of times that they say bro, the amount of idiocy that they, like, espout, I didn't understand how this show was able to be made, why Acorn TV would have done it this way, because I know that Acorn TV is not one of these big channels, but it just seemed like it was so blatantly bad, so obviously bad.
Well, what confused me was that this is Cannes again, and like the whole point of prestige and the ambiance that it's supposed to have around it, and yet they go with such like a very not a very novel concept. Like you look at shows like Castle, where you have the one detective and then like kind of the villainish person who's also working with the detective.
Right.
You got White Collar, same deal. The Blacklist, in a way, because you get the villain working with it's just a cliche idea, and it seems like they're just doing that here with Harry, almost with like the Mentalist vibes.
But it wasn't even like Harry was really that bad a villain. It seemed like he was almost
not a villain, but like just a super sarcastic kind of like Psych, where you just bring in someone who's not necessarily a police officer to add a fresh mind to it.
Yeah. But it didn't even seem like like, for example, the main thing about him is his daughter. His daughter at the very end of the 5th episode, it's literally the last scene. We see he looks at his phone, and there's a video of I thought it was just an actress from a reveal that happens in the 6th episode, but it actually is his daughter saying that she needs help because Boar has captured her.
Oh.
And then the 6th episode, for some reason, very early on, we see, I guess, like, kind of transition into the scene of that video. So we're now in that setting. And then Boar, again, he's the main villain in this series, says cut. And it doesn't.
So she's working with Boar.
So she's working with Boar, and then he gives her like 2, I guess, really good concert tickets. And I thought that was just an actress. Maybe Harry didn't know what his daughter looked like and just assumed that was her. But no, it actually is her. And at the very end of the episode, when Harry and her end up meeting, they have like a reconnecting moment. But what was the point of his daughter working with Boar if it just seemed like they were actually going to end up making up in the end? It didn't make any sense.
I don't know, man. I don't know what to tell you. I didn't expect you to enjoy this because it's got a 4.6 on IMDb, and the only like real review that from the sources that we normally look at was Decider, which said skip it.
I am shocked to hear that this is the end of the season though, because it just ends up being that Eloise, the person who makes out with Leia, the person who was also dating the person that died, the actress's assistant.
Yeah.
She was mad because apparently the assistant was cheating on her with the actress, so she ended up poisoning her meal with allergies like peanuts and vinegar, which she was mad about. I honestly, this show was just a huge question mark to me.
So just skip it. Yeah, all right. That's what we're basically telling people to do, is just skip it. I will say that I thought that maybe it would incorporate something to do with a heist, because there was the most like famous thing. First of all, you remember when I brought up To Catch a Thief earlier, the Alfred Hitchcock?
Yes.
That was filmed in a famous hotel called the Carlton Intercontinental Hotel. And a few years ago, there was like this very infamous robbery that happened there. I think like gems were stolen and stuff. And did you know that the Pink Panthers actually exist? Like there's actually a group out there.
Yeah. I remember 60 Minutes talked about it.
Yes.
They said that they're like actually a really violent group, but people always think of them. The public perception is like cuddly because of the Pink Panther.
Well, they're the ones that they think stole from the Carlton Intercontinental Hotel. Again, one of the biggest like international heists of all time. And so I thought, well, what better than to like kind of do a play on that? You know?
I think that the heist that you're talking about was Philip, Camille's dad, being in jail. That's probably what he was put in jail for.
He was put in jail for corruption, I thought, but like maybe he was also stealing stuff.
At the end of the 6th episode, he's let out of jail, so I'm assuming he's been in there for the whole season, and then Boar ends up shooting him, and it's shocking to me that, again, that's the season finale, because it seemed like there was at least supposed to be 2 more episodes that were released.
Well, originally when I read up on this from a few years ago, it did say that it was an 8-episode series, and then somewhere along the line it became a 6-episode series, so I don't know.
Aside from Harry meeting up with his daughter again, I don't see how this really could leave that many fans of the TV series satisfied, because it didn't seem like there was that much of a storyline to begin with in the first place.
Well, yeah, I mean, I still have some stuff on the actors, but other than that, the show itself, I didn't know what to expect as far as plot. I thought maybe it would be a procedural. I thought it might be like the other shows I pointed out, Castle, White Collar, The Blacklist. They brought up Moonlighting, which was that Bruce Willis show from a really long time ago. Yeah. The Will They, Won't They about that. Who do you think that you want to see Camille get with in the end, Harry or
I
Lynn?
Said Harry was my favorite character.
Yeah. Yeah, and apparently he took the role, Jamie Bamber, because his mom lives near Cannes.
Oh, I mean...
That's one of the reasons why.
It's a good thing they were able to get him, because, again, he was the best actor in the whole show.
Maybe start with casting, like, because they knew that this was going to be an English show.
Right.
And a lot of people have criticized the fact that all these people are, like, speak French. And that normally in their normal lives, if this was happening, you would expect them to be speaking French, right?
And you can tell that they're struggling with the English.
Yes, like why these people in Cannes would not be speaking French to one another. It just made no sense. And you would have watched it with subtitles and probably enjoyed it more because the acting would have been better.
The acting would have been way better. Whether it's the heavy accents from the cast that sometimes make it indecipherable, the cheap, boring, and repetitive dialogue that each character has, or the jumbled and oftentimes confusing storylines, Cannes Confidential, 3 out of 10.
Okay, yeah. All right, well, I'll end it on this note. So, as I said, Shime was like a big deal, and so is Lucie Lucas, but for different reasons. But both appeared on Dancing with the Stars, but the French version. And Shime actually won, I think, like the 2nd season, and then started coming back as like one of the hosts or the what are they called? The judges?
Was she a fan favorite? That's usually how that works.
No, I mean, like, she's a famous singer, so I think she's like the Shakira of over there. And then Lucie Lucas actually joined, I think, for the 11th season of their Dancing with the Stars, but then was like voted out pretty early. It's weird because her other show, which is still going strong after 13 years, I think she was playing a 16-year-old when it started, but she's 37 now, so I guess they must have done time jumps. And if you could look at the cast, there's not a lot of people who've stuck around. They've even recast members.
Yeah.
So then maybe that's a show we should look into, the Clem show, because in Cannes at least, it was Googled more than like Game of Thrones and Walking Dead back in 2015 during that year.
Wow.
So it's big there.
I know. I would compare this also to Panhandle. That was a show we did last year, the mystery show, and then Elementary as well, just because of the gender dynamic. But I seriously think you could watch any other procedural and you'll like it way more.
All right. Well, thanks for listening. We'll see you on the next episode. Hope you enjoyed this one. Bye.
Bye.